today I'm doing a new sermon series for the next 3 Sundays, today and next 2 more Sundays. It's titled, The Bad Habits of Jesus. Remember, folks, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was a text on when Jesus turned the water into wine and said something about bad habits of Jesus, like he made way too much wine. You remember that? Okay. So he made way too much wine, and like wastefully too much, and that's kind of bad. So that's where, and I also said, I think, that our life is sort of kind of determined by habits that we live, right? So we're our habits, and as followers of Jesus Christ, we are to emulate his habits, not just learning what he taught, but also how he lived out his teaching and how he related with other people and his principles and his habits. And I said something about that his habit, if we were to live out the principles and habits that Jesus lived out, if we were to live it out in our own lives, it's not something that is going to actually make us successful and wealthy, or make us more friends and make us like popular and powerful. It's not something that you read out there, that 7 habits of effective people that can lead you into a successful or happy life, making more friends. But on the other hand, if we were to live out the habits of Jesus, we probably most likely end up in a lot of trouble. Rather than making more friends, we probably will make more enemies, like Jesus did. And so we're talking about bad habits of Jesus, right? Bad habits. And I also said there's qualification when I said bad habits. It's kind of bad and undesirable habits according to our standard, worldly standard, but it's a good habit. It's a wise and desirable habit according to God's standard. And also I said, when I said bad, I don't mean by bad that's very undeserved bad. I said awesome bad. When you talk about like, oh, that's so bad, that's awesome, right? And so if you were to, so that's what I meant by bad habits. So we're on this bad habits of Jesus, and for the next 3 Sundays, including today. I just want to say up front, before I begin, is that this is not new. This is not my original idea. It's coming from the book titled The Bad Habits of Jesus, written by my mentor, my teacher for many years. And I've been following his books, reading up, and also he was my main mentor, professor while I was starting my D.Min doctorate ministry, 2011, 2013, at the George Fox Seminary. Dr. Leonard Sweet, that's his name. He's a master. He's like, to him I bow down. It's like he's the person that I really look up to, and I've been following him for the last 20 years. And he written about 50 books already, and kind of bestsellers, and he's considered to be very well-known scholars, Christian scholars, and his travels around the world. So it's taken out of his book, and a lot of what I'm saying today is actually heavily borrowed from his book. If we have some time later in the near future, I don't mind to actually go through a book study on this, because it's a very interesting book. We can actually go through about 2 or 3 months of book study on bad habits of Jesus. So I just wanted to let it out there for now. So that's kind of an introduction for today. So if I could just draw your attention to your bulletin cover, inside the cover, so there's a photo, a copy of a movie poster titled Dirty Dozen. This is a movie, war film movie, 1967 war film movie directed by Robert Aldrich and starring Lee Marvin. Anybody seen that movie? Some of you did? Yes, you did. For those of you who haven't watched this movie, let me just give you a little bit of a synopsis, overview of what the movie was about. It was in Britain, 1944, Instead, in 1944, Allied forces were preparing for the D-Day invasion, and Major Weissman, OSS officer, was in Intel of that time, and he was given a special and very unusual mission called the Operation Amnesty. And Major was to select the band of Army's worst convicts and then turn them into commandos to a virtual suicide mission and like airborne infiltration and assault in a chateau near Rennes, Brittany. So that's being played by Lee Marvin. And so he was to select this group of wartime convicts. And so he was assigned 12 convicts, the so-called Dirty Dozen. 12 convicts, and they were mostly serving a long time sentence, or the people who were about to be executed for their crimes. And among them were murderers and rapists and robbers and like truly dirty, truly bad and ugly, truly dirty dozen of a society. So the operation was successful. But only 3 out of 13 came back alive, and 2 of them were exonerated, came back and went back to their previous ranks, and rest of them who died, General communicated to the next of kin that they died on the line of duty. Very interesting movie, and kind of a memorable movie in a sense that it's not the content itself, but it's a subject matter and the title, The Dirty Dozen. The title was very interesting, that the bad and ugly of the society were picked, the bad and ugly of the society who had no redeeming quality whatsoever, but were picked to have given a second chance in life to redeem their life and redeem their honor. The Dirty Dozen. Now, as you know, Jesus had a band of Dirty Dozen as his disciples, right? Probably not as bad and ugly as those characters in the movie Dirty Dozen, but they were considered and labeled as bad and dirty, bad and ugly, according to a social standard of this time, and Jesus' time. And Jesus picked 12 Dirty Dozens, and he has given them a special mission to carry out God's mission, to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ and to usher in the kingdom of God. Right? To Dirty Dozens. And today's text is about calling up 4 of them, 4 of this Dirty Dozen, and calling Peter and Andrew and James and John, and they were all fishermen from region of Galilee. The region of Galilee. Now, let me just talk a little bit about Galilee. Galilee was a cosmopolitan region, province up a bit north of Israel, northern Israel, where there had people with mixed origins. And they're often looked down, in Jesus' time, looked down by those people who were more Jewish, like proper Jews, and those people who were living near and in Jerusalem area. Had a bad reputation in that sense. They were with a mixed heritage, a mixed origin, mixed race, mixed culture, mixed language. Not only far away from the center of Israel, but they were also considered by many people more proper Orthodox Jews, considered to be rather sitting loosely to the law of Moses' law, and also considered to be biblically impure by proper Orthodox Jews. So that's where Galileans were. And that's where Jesus actually, let me just go back. And so the Galilee was considered to be a Galilee of Gentiles. And remember, Jesus came from Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in the town of Nazareth, which was a region of Galilee, and there was considered the reputation that anything good would come out from Galilee. So overall, reputation-wise, truly bad in that sense, truly fitting place and region for where the dirty dozens would live. But it's interesting that Jesus did more miracles and ministries in the region of Galilee around that areas than any place else, than places like in Jerusalem. He did more miracles and ministries around that area. But not only that, he picked those dirty dozens in the areas of in Galilee, around that area. And all of 12, and except one person, all of 12, they were actually, all disciples came from the Galilee, region of Galilee, and one person, Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus later, he was from Kerioth, more southern part of Israel. In that sense. So he picked all of these people truly from the dirty, the bad and ugly place, fitting as his disciples, and it's quite interesting in that sense. And not only that, the way how he picked people. I mean, he picked people like with his disciples as a no name and nobody of the people of that society at the time. And the way how he picked his disciples were nothing in any particular order. It's kind of more of a random basis, like almost like haphazard on a way. The way how he picked it, there was the disciples who had no training, no experience, no resume, and no proper interviewing process. He just picked people along as he was walking along the street. He would just pick people who were just on the street, very haphazard way. I mean, even his interviewing process was very random. It was just happened to just walk on the Galilee, and then he saw these two fishermen. He just said, "Hey guys, just want to come for a ride?" Sort of like, "You want to come for a ride?" And these people were not even hitchhiking or anything. They were just minding their own business. And Jesus just comes along, "Hey, come for a ride. Okay, let's go." Sort of, And then the interesting thing was that these people they just dropped everything. And they just went for a ride with Jesus, and they never looked back, never came back. They're missing in God's mission for entire their life. That's what happened. So when you think about how Jesus picked his disciples, it's no name and nobody, no experience, no qualification whatsoever. The only time when there was other person, was quite rich person, who had every qualification to become Jesus' disciples, he wanted to follow Jesus. Remember that rich young guy wanted to follow Jesus? And he says, I want to follow you, Rabbi. And Jesus said, "Okay, well, yeah, sure. Can you drop everything and follow me right away?" And he couldn't do that because he had too much to lose. So he couldn't follow Jesus. But all those people who are fishermen, and all of them, about 7 of them were fishermen, all these people from that Galilee, maybe they didn't have anything to lose, maybe. But there was no reason in mind why they would follow, but they followed Jesus. They dropped everything and followed Jesus. And when Jesus picked, there was no name, nobody, and no qualification. Though even his interviewing process was just very random, the way how he picked this band of bad and ugly people. I mean, we wouldn't do that, right? When we hire people for ministry in the church, would you do that? I mean, we wouldn't pick anybody off the street. We would never do that without some sense of moral, suspicious about moral background, without no experience, no training, with no qualification, no awareness about church, have never been to church before, and this person has been just panhandling all of his life. Not that I have anything against panhandling, but it's like we don't do that. We don't just pick anybody off the street, right? I mean, we cover our bases, right? At least, right? We go through a great deal of discerning process, and when we try to pick somebody as become our minister, we go through a discerning process, and then we form a small group committee called a selection committee or search committee, and then they meet several times and go through, and then they list all the criteria, and they come out with a job description, right? Job description which even Jesus would not qualify, but they would put up this job description, anyway, and then call out, go out there to advertise, and then you have all these people from around why in Canada, and they apply for it, especially coming to Vancouver, apply for it, you got hundreds of people, and then out of all this, and you go through selection process about top 5, and then right after that, you the top 3, and then you go through interviewing process, right? You go through a heavy interview process, you just do that several times over, and out of 3, you pick one person, right? And then this one person, you go through, the selection committee will just recommend that to the board, and board make a motion, and then board will just bring it back to the congregation, make the whole motion, and then you pick this person to become your minister, right? We have our standard. It doesn't mean that it always fits, but at least we cover our standard, right? We don't pick anybody off the street, do we? We don't do that. When I think about it, actually, that sort of happened to me coming to Knox. And I was kind of, I don't know about you, but from my perspective, I was just in doing nothing really. Think about it, doing not much. And I was just in Starbucks and drinking my coffee and just bumming around and doing not much. And much like, what's going to happen? And then I got this email out of blue. An email from this stranger named Alan McKenna. I got that email. Basically what the whole email was saying, hey, you want to come to minister at the Knox United for a temporary basis? Out of blue. I had never heard of his name, never heard of, I heard of Knox United Church, but never really knew what the church was about. So I was out of blue, just one day, I was sitting there doing not much and just contemplating what's going to happen, and then this just came up, and then I said, wow, and I thought about that for a long time, for about 10 minutes, and then, and I wanted to respond right away, but I'm smarter than you think, folks. I just want you to know. Because if I responded 10 minutes later, they probably think that I'm very desperate, so I just waited until next day, right? So that I didn't want to appear as a desperate, right? So I responded next day. So I just came up and I became your temporary minister, and then without really going through anything, I just became your permanent minister, right? Voila, it's like what happened. If I went through all the proper process, I bet you that I'd probably be at the bottom 3 of 50 people, and bottom 3 I wouldn't probably at all. Just want you to know that I'm very lucky to be here as your minister. I count my blessings every day, folks. I just want you to know that, okay? So do we. You haven't seen nothing. We cover our bases, right? When we go through this selection process, we have our standard. We don't pick anybody off the street. We don't do this sort of stuff. But Jesus had this bizarre, this strange habit of befriending, welcoming, embracing, even calling the bad and ugly ones of our society. And not only that, he would take them to take the mantle of his leadership and to take on his mission to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, to be on God's mission in life. That's bad. Isn't it? That's bad according to our standard. We don't do that. Not only Jesus calling disciples like that, but also Jesus befriended those people who are considered to be bad and ugly of the society. He's been going around, and his social networks, were consisted of all those people who are untouchable, all those people who are like down and dirty of their society. When you look at a circle of his friendships, when you look at it, it's like not who's who of the society, but all the down and dumb people. You see, more than anything else, Jesus was persecuted because of his bad habits of befriending the bad and ugly people of society. More than anything else. The people who were high up, and religious and political figures who were high up, they just didn't like rabbi to befriend the bad and ugly of society. They just didn't like, why are you hanging out with a bad crowd? You should not hang out with a bad crowd. It's like bad on us. Like, why you do that? But Jesus continued to hang out with the sinners, the bad and ugly, all this, what society consider to be down and out, untouchables. Even his disciples rebuked Jesus many times. They were like, Jesus, why are you hanging out with children? Like, why are you doing that? It's like, why are you hanging out with this prostitute? Why you do that? Why are you hanging out with them? Why are you letting this woman to anoint you with oil? That's bad. Okay? That's a bad reputation. What would people think out there? What would people like? What would be all the rumors and scandals, right? What if you were hanging out with them? Why are you doing this? Even his own disciples actually rebuked Jesus for doing this. But he continued to hang out with the bad and ugly of society. He continued to befriend and welcome the prostitutes. And he liked to be among many scandalous women. Right? Yeah, that's what he did. No wonder, once in a while you read books fictionalizing Jesus as like a womanizer, and we probably had many wives and many children which we don't know about, right? Fictionalized movies and books out there. It's bad, right? It's bad. But Jesus continued. He risked all of this, all the rumors and scandals and all. He risked all of that. He continued to befriend and embrace, welcome the bad and ugly. And he didn't just let them stay there, but he changed their lives. He changed their lives inside and out and upside and down. And they all, later on, they're all been changed, and they all took the mantle of leadership and they entered in the ministry, the mission of God's mission to befriend those who are bad and ugly of society. They took his mission. That's bad, but it's good, and according to God's standard. That's what Jesus has been all about. That's what God's kingdom is all about. That's what the sign of God's kingdom is about. That's what the sign of Jesus is all about. That's what we are called to be and to do as Church of Jesus Christ. I mean, we were all bad and ugly. Maybe not as bad and ugly as those 30 dozen movies, but we were like broken. We were all tattered, We were all damaged. But we were called, and he just befriended us and changed us to take on his mission. That's who we are, and take on his mission to befriend the dirty and ugly of our society. That's what the mission is all about. That's what Jesus has been all about. That's what the kingdom of God is all about. Befriending the dirty, the bad, and the ugly of society. So let me ask you folks, as church, as people of God, and as Church of Jesus Christ, how are we doing befriending the bad and the ugly of our neighborhood, of our society? How are we doing that? If we were to have one of the bad and ugly strangers here among us, would we be able to embrace and befriend? There's a story about this minister in a mega church. It's the first day at the church, and so very few people knew he was. So what he did, I don't know whether this story is true or not, but it's circulating around on the internet. So it's a mega church, and so they were expecting this minister. So what he did was to actually dress up as a homeless person, okay? And then he said amongst all the congregation, nobody took notice, and nobody came to say hi. Nobody welcomed him, and he was just sitting there all by himself. And then this presider says, I want to introduce you to our new minister. And all of a sudden, this homeless guy just walked from the pew and coming up to the pulpit. And I think he sort of kind of chastised the congregation. Okay? He didn't preach at all. I think he said something, I'll see you next week. Something like that. What would happen if, the bad and ugly were all of a sudden just appeared among us? I'm not just talking about homeless people. I'm talking about the people who are homeless in a sense that they are seeking. Right? In a way, they are broken. In a way, they are bad and ugly in that sense. Are we able to share? Our call as church is to befriending the bad and ugly. To share our life with them. To share our food and share our life, to befriend, to embrace the bad and ugly of our society, of our neighborhoods. So much so that not only that, but also, just like what Jesus has done, is to really willing to risk our lives for this bad and ugly of our society. That's what Jesus has done. And that's bad in one sense, right? But from God's standard, that's awesome. That's great. Let's sing that song that Colleen taught us.